My name is Davin Sturdivant, and in this video we'll be comparing two drivers in a single session in Race Studio.
So I race competition cards, and I'm also a writer for Kart Pulse, which is designed to gather information about the sport of karting and put it into an easy to find place. So when I got in touch with Roger Cadell, who's the national trainer for AIM Sport, we decided to put together some videos about how to use karting data in Race Studio. We've broken them up into these little mini vignettes, hopefully to make it easy to consume. But if you have questions about whatever we cover, just leave a comment below and we'll put it in another video. So I'm going to turn it over to Roger and take it from there.
Okay, so Roger, I'm always trying to get data from my friends so I can figure out where they're faster than me in particular areas of the track. And I know that I can download my data or really upload my data and compare sessions, but sometimes I'd like to know a little bit more about how to really pull out some key information of data so I can get information quickly and move on to the next thing.
Yeah, one of the most powerful tools with data is comparing, right? So and you can look at you can look at your qualifying versus your best lap in the heat race and compare yourself. But sometimes you're very good in an area, you don't even know it, right? You know it out on the track. You can see that, you know what, I pulled up on that fellow every lap, but so I think I'm good in this area, but it's hard to tell, right? So the most powerful thing we can do with data is to be able to compare data. And sometimes you'll have a friend or another racer or a teammate that will take pity on you and give you some data, right, for lack of a better word. And certainly you're going to be faster in some spots, and they're going to be faster in other spots. And by comparing the data, you can really look at some different lines and some different techniques and some different ways and get to that end point of understanding where you really want to work on your driving styles or your cart setup in a much quicker way. So really the way that you do that is once you get the data onto one computer, like we're showing here, we have a couple of tests, and it's two different drivers on the same track. And it can be the same day in the same heat race. It can be one from qualifying, one from the race. It can be one from last weekend. It doesn't matter, right? A lot of the track conditions are similar, but technically we can bring up any two data sessions from two different people, and that's what we're going to do here. We're going to open up these two sessions, and we're going to take a look at a few different laps and see where one driver's faster than the other, and we'll give you some tips and tricks of ways to do the three basic things. What happened? Where were you faster? Where were you slower? Where did it happen? Braking, cornering, entry, exit, straightaway, whatever, the where did it happen is always critical. And then the why. There's because this is some data files we have. If we were there, we had some videos, we could dig into the why a little bit more, maybe some additional sensors, but we're going to do a pretty good shot, at trying to understand the why as well. So what happened? Where did it happen? Why did it happen? That's really the way we always study data. Okay, so we're going to highlight both of these tests. Normal Windows functionality, you can click on one, hit the the shift or the control key, and you can select other ones. So we highlight them both, and we come down to the open test button. And what happens is we have just opened both of these tests, and it can be any two tests on your hard drive. And so we've opened them both up. And when we first open it up, the way I typically close my data is just have a speed trace open, so that it always opens where you last closed your data. And so we're looking at two different tests. As you can see across the top here, we've got David in a heat race, and we've got Mark in a heat race at the same time. So these happen to be out running at the same time. And it always opens up with your best lap, right? So down here across the bottom, we've got Mark, and Mark is up in the test in the measures and laps toolbar. You can see that Mark is the red per lap color, or global color is red. So his traces are all going to be red because I've got the per lap color checked. And then David is going to be blue. So we're going to be able, no matter what we open or look at the time compare bar, David's always going to be blue and Mark's always going to be red. The other thing that you'd want to look at here is David's lap time was a 1:11.328 and Mark's was a 1:12.318. So basically a second difference on these two best laps, right? Mm-hmm. So you can just look at the data really quickly. First thing you should do is just scan the speed traces and scan the time compare bar. We've got another video we've already done where we talked about the time compare bar in the user interface video we've already done. So you can go back and look at that. But basically the fastest of the two laps is a flat line, and then the other driver is going to be compared against it. and that's why we call it the time compare bar. And if it's above the reference lap or the flat line, if like in this case the red one right here is above it, at this
Right.
point on the track, if you look over here in the channel tags, it shows that that red lap is 0.533 slower than the blue because it's above it. So that is real world lap time that you're behind that, that Mark is behind David at this spot of the track. Okay, we're kind of back to our, where is it, right? So we need a track map of some sort. So what we're going to bring up the GPS, and we'll just bring it up and we'll place it here. And the way that you do that, you can open it up and resize it and place it up here in the corner. We've done some other videos on how to set this up. You can go back and look at some of those. But so now we put our cursor into the main window, and we can see that right here in the GPS map where the cursors are dynamically linked with the speed traces in the measures graph, and then we can see where this happened. I'm gonna pick a different lap with David. This lap 8, which is a 1:11.6, so it's just a 0.3 or so slower, but it's got some interesting things that we'll take a look at. So this might be a lap that we wanted to compare against. One of the reasons I select this lap is the red one was actually quite a bit quicker right off the bat. If you kind of click down here where the red is below the blue, you can see that it was 0.2 faster, at the exit of turn 1, which is this first left-hand turn on this particular track since the start-finish line. And so the red one is quite a bit faster. And then as it's trending upwards, the red one is losing time. So we go all the way up to, this area where, this part of the track, which is this whole complex up here on this north end. And then in this little middle section here, then he holds his own. The red one holds his own, goes back to being flat again. So, so let's start at the kind of the beginning of this lap, and we're going to study these two laps and where was Mark faster, where was David faster, and and a bit of why, right? So let's start at the beginning. So here at the start finish line, you come into this left-hand turn 1, the speed trace, they're going along, and then they hit the brakes, the speed drops down, right? And if you look at the time compare bar, the red one drops down quite a bit. Remember that 0.2 of a second that he made up. Well, why did he make up that much time? Well, look at the speed trace up here at the top. If I click in that area right there, it shows us that the red lap was at 49.6 and 48.6. So there's a 1 mile per hour difference at the end of the straightaway with the red lap being quicker. For whatever reason, there's what happened back here. We can study into that a little bit, but you can see the red one picked up some speed right there at the end, and the blue one lost some speed. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
And then the red one went deeper into the corner before he hit his brakes. See how the red trace is over here to the right, which means that the red one went deeper on the straightaway, hits the brakes later, and comes down. And and by the time they get down to this point right here, there's that 0.2, at the exit of the corner. Kind of interesting though, that's the what happened, the where it happened. Now why, right? Those are our 3 things we always want to kind of cover. What happened? Yep, the red one's faster. Where did it happen? It happened under braking, and then at the end of the straightaway, braking and through this left-hand turn. And then the why. I'm going to zoom in a little bit on this GPS map. So I click on, in this window, and you can use your scroll keys, your scroll button on your mouse, and then we can look at the line. Look at what the blue cart was doing leading into this corner. Why do you think that lost all this speed right at the end and went way to the inside and then back out to the outside? Why would a driver do that?
Probably because he was setting up for somebody, or maybe getting out of the way of somebody.
Either getting out of the way or moving to the left to pass somebody and then moving back up to the right to make the corner, right? So it was one of those two. Yeah, if you were the driver, you would probably remember that, because you're downloading your data right after you get back. So we understand kind of what happened here, but we don't know fully why. We know the speed was dropped because he was driving left and then driving back out, and then really lost some speed here in the middle of the corner right there, right? Look at the dip of the speed trace right there. And he went in so fast, tried to go in fast, but then missed the apex of turn 1. Right. And he ended up out pretty wide, right? So lost a little bit of time, and mainly because he came in pretty, driver's left into a left-hand corner, what I call flat into the corner, and then had to rotate around the corner. That just was a bad line in, right? So probably because of another cart that was in the way. But after that, then the speed was decent, and kind of holding. In fact, he was a little bit quicker at this little section right here. He's 0.2 of a mile per hour faster through this little section, and then look at this huge gap right here, right? Again, if we go right to the worst of it, 42.7 to 40.3, and why, what happened there, right? We know what happened. The blue was faster, and the red was a little bit slower. Yeah, and you try to figure out why. We need a few more tools, because all we have is a speed trace and a driver line. And while I see how the red one is over here to the left-hand edge, is set up into that corner a little bit better. And if you notice, this is where the speed differential really starts, right here. And you can see that the red one started farther left and actually arced into that corner probably in a better way, which allows a smaller or larger actually effective radius of driving in and arcing that thing in. So that probably, you'd think that would help the red lap, but it doesn't seem to, right? The blue one's rolling through there quicker. Let's bring up a channel, lateral G's. It's the forces that the cart is seeing left and right into the driver's ribs from the seat, or the tire, laterally on the cart. And we can start to see some trends on our lateral G's as well. And while the red lap was pretty quick, at the end of the straightaway, and then braking, and all the things that happened there, but going into this big carousel right-hander here, look at the G's that the blue cart is achieving through that entire corner, right?
Right.
And he's rolling through there at that's 1.5 and that's 2.0. So it's 1.9 versus 1.4 right that spot right there. So quite a bit more lateral G forces, which means the driver is attacking that corner on the David with the blue trace is charging through that corner and making some good time. The time compare bar is now trending the other way because of the corner speed. And it really is a corner force. It certainly isn't a driving, a different in driving line. If anything's a little bit wide in the middle of the corner, but just certainly either has better tires, a better setup, is just a faster driver through the corner. Something is happening, right? We can dig in a little bit deeper yet, but we certainly can see that trend. Let's look. We'll come back to more corners in a minute, but just look at the general trend of the lateral G forces for these two drivers. See how the blue,
David's, it's always a lot higher.
The blue is peaking on both left hand and right hand corners. Is just substantially has more grip in the corners, whether it's the driving style, whether it's the tires, axle choice, whatever it happens to be, right? But the data is clearly showing this. And if you look at the speed in a lot of the apexes, or these areas where we're getting these more G's, the blue driver, David, is faster, through the middle of these corners for the most part, right? There's one here that's not so much, but for the most part, more G's, more speed through the middle of the corner. So some things we can kind of look at, right? So interesting there. Now you're working with your buddy here. What setup do you have? Why are you getting more G's? Are you driving it in harder? Well, let's look at a little bit of that too. Things we can look at from the data. Look at some of the different things on the lateral G here. One of the things that happens right here, this is an interesting thing that the blue driver is doing quite a bit. We've got lateral G's. He loaded it up right here. He hits a maximum of 1.95. Then he releases the steering wheel down to a point here where he's down to about 1.56, right? And then this big spike right here, which means that towards the exit, you can see where we are on the track, and we can see that that's past the apex, and he's trying to get the cart over here to the driver's right so he can set up for the next corner, and he gives the steering wheel, or at least there's a big large lateral G spike right here. Look what happens, and this is pretty typical in karting. It's something we as a driver you need to watch. When he spiked up on his lateral G's, what happens to his speed at the same spot?
Oh wow, it dropped a lot.
Dropped a lot, and then the cart had to work. This particular cart, you can see on some of these straightaways, the blue has a bit of a horsepower acceleration advantage. So you can see the same thing here. But the driver has if we look at several of these traces, there's another one where there's a bit of a spike on exit, trying to yank that cart across the track to get ready for the next corner. There's another one down here. There's another one right there on the corner from the different direction. So this driver, the blue driver, has a bit of a habit of hitting these, giving it a good yank at corner exit to get the thing to try to turn right on the corner exit. The trouble is, is when you turn hard on corner exit with a cart, it sucks it down, especially with a low horsepower cart, right? So what's happening is, even though the blue cart has a lot more acceleration, if you can see here, the red one's actually quicker on corner exit here, getting on the back straightaway by not much, but 34.8 to 34.1. And yet all the way down that straightaway, by the time we get here near the end, the blue cart has a 49.1 to a 47.7 speed advantage down the straightaway, even though that little bit of an additional yank on the steering wheel slowed the thing down and dropped him below the red exit speed. So if we can get that driver to clean up these spikes at the exits of the corners, and you see them, they're fairly consistent, right? If we can stop that and get the driver to do a little bit more of the turning ahead of that, maybe a little slower in, certainly getting the cart to rotate a little bit more early where he doesn't have to do that, this would be a mile an hour faster here, which would put him at probably 3 or 4 miles an hour faster at the end of the straightaway, and the lap times would of course come down even more, and he's already faster with 11.6. So you see the lateral G's. So we can do some studying and see some mid-corner speeds, and then understand why was the mid-corner speeds a little bit slower, and you can kind of start to dig into some of the things the driver might be doing.
Okay. That does make sense.
There's and the last thing that we'd want to do, and you just walk your way across this entire lap, right? And you could you study each corner. Of course, the drivers know the corners very well. One of the interesting things that I noticed was down in this corner down here at the far south end, and the blue driver really pinched this corner coming off from the middle of this corner off. The GPS showed me that. Okay, so then I want to go back into the data, and now that I've got a visual on a corner that just looks a little bit odd, let's go back to the data now and look at and study that corner. And you can see that the speed trace comes down, and there is he turned in a little bit later. The lateral G building trace is to the right of the red one, so he came down into the corner, turned in a little bit later, and then really had to turn fairly hard. And I'm not sure if he was trying to get under somebody else or what, but at this point right here, he's really yanking on the steering wheel to pull it down hard for whatever reason. Maybe trying to get under somebody, maybe somebody spun on the outside. Those are things we would have to dig into. But the resulting speed differential from more G's, rotating the cart a lot from the center out, really gave him an apex speed of 31.3 to the red driver's 34.5. So that then took a while to overcome that, even though he has some better acceleration. Halfway up the straightaway, they were at similar miles per hour, 40.2 halfway up the straightaway, this next straightaway, and then but by the end the blue one has a little bit more.
So can I ask the question that's a little bit on a tangent? It's just a small question. So we look at these spikes at the end of the corners where the driver may be making a last minute adjustment. I mean, I know the why could be several different reasons, but do you think potentially one of the whys might be like an adjustment they might be making behind a cart? And so it's like that last minute adjustment. Sometimes you come up on someone too quickly, and so you make that adjustment to kind of get out of their way, or like at the last minute you go, oh, and you try to make a change to set up for something else.
I'm almost certain of that. I don't think it's always a cart, because it happens in too many corners, right? It's happening a lot, but it certainly is an adjustment that the driver is doing right at the end. He's trying to hustle. This may well be it. This is a thesis, right? But is trying to hustle the cart through the early part to the middle, and then on the exit, when he's really laying into the corner, he's then his eyes going up there, and he's going, I'm running out of track a little bit. Let me give it just one more yank to adjust, like you say, to get a little bit more rotation of the cart before I get to the corner exit. And that's something that the driver can fix by getting a little bit more rotation or a little bit more G-forces back in this part, and then allowing the cart to flow up off the corner, which will really not have these things happen where you've got a pulling down the speed on the exit of the cart, which will really help on lap time, because every time you're slow off the corner, the next straightaway, if the red cart had as much performance out of the engine as the blue one, the lap times would have probably be swapped, right?
Makes sense.
The red one would have been a little bit quicker. The red one doesn't get the G's in the middle of the corners, and there's either a handling or a driver issue that we could work on. But what he does do fairly well is has a nice radius or a nice lateral G profile here. On most corners, there's sometimes here he's even dropping off because he's G'd it up and got the cart to rotate quite a bit in the middle, which allows this thing to really rotate and power off the corner very, very well. So that's the kind of stuff that you can study, and then both drivers are going to get value by looking at things like this and say, okay, well, yeah, David, here's what you're doing, and Mark, we're studying this together. Yeah, look, if you did this a little better and I did this a little bit better, we're both going to get better, right? We're both going to improve. So that's the way that I would start the study process. There might be even more questions. We've answered one level of why, right? What happened? Faster here. Why? Where did it happen? Middle of the corner and exit for David, especially using that example again. There's other things here obviously as well, and then the why, and we've gotten one quick why. And there's maybe more. Is it the axle's doing something? The thing's setting down. He's running into curbs. It might create another why question. Okay, if that's true, then why? So you might end up with a level of 2 or 3 whys before you get to where you're comfortable with an answer, and then you go back out and then you try to apply those in the driving or in the cart setup, and then go back out and do it again. So very, very important to share data. It really shortcuts the learning curve of understanding places to go look. So if you can ever do it, you grab some data, get a partner, and study your data together. It will help both of you.
That's the end of this AIM Learn Fast video. Leave a comment below if you have any questions or if you want us to cover another topic. Visit aimsports.com if you want to learn more about Micron products.